I'm John Wang, Director of Special Events here at the SVPMA, and I'm delighted to introduce Luke Congdon, a longtime Silicon Valley product manager and exec. He's built billion-dollar product lines at multiple companies, including VMware, NetApp, Sun Microsystems, and Yahoo. And he's currently at Nutanix. He joins us with a wealth of experience, and we look forward to learning from him. And as an aside, he also has a website, lukecongdon.com, with a lot of interesting product management career topics. So after the meeting, we encourage you to go there and check things out. So without further ado, Luke.
Great. Thank you, John. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tom, Dave, Ashish, and the SVPMA team. When they reached out to me, I really jumped at the opportunity to talk to this group. I've certainly looked at your content, and I thought some of it was just fabulous. So I'm honored to be here. What I thought I would do today, as we were talking, was share some of the things that I've learned over the years, in many cases the hard way. So I thought that would be a fun discussion to have. Please do ask questions as we go, or we can save questions for the end. I would love to interact and see what people might have in response or additional questions. Let me go ahead and, whoops, let's share correctly. There we go. Can we see it correctly?
I see you.
Excellent. Thank you. So what we thought we would do today was share 12 product management traps to avoid from 16 years in product management. So I actually have done this role for 16 years. I started a long time ago, and I actually started almost mistakenly. I was very interested in web technology and what was going on, but I actually started as a project manager and did that for a few years and did it so well, I didn't realize I was doing product management until about 3 years in. I just thought I was doing the best possible project management job I could think of, including writing PRDs and getting executive sign off and building things and working cross-functionally. And I really realized a bit after the fact, I said, oh, the job I'm really doing is this, and that's why I enjoy it so much. And then I just designed a pathway into additional companies to do more of that. So let's move forward. So my 16 years of product management started with pre-PM roles. I didn't start, and even this was before my project manager role. I lived in New York City. I tried commercial banking. I tried a little bit of pharmacy, not that exciting, which is why I moved out here. My first role, where I was a project manager turned product manager, was for SaaS 1.0 internal tools. This was back in about 2004, 2005 timeframe, if I can remember correctly. So web technology was a little different than what you get today. It was still good, just different languages, different tools at work. So things have changed a little bit. From there, I moved over to VMware. I sort of took a big dive and started working on server virtualization on their ESX, which became ESXi product line. Really great stuff. And in fact, that really informed where I went for the next several years after that, which included an analytics startup. So that was a real day zero experience of joining as the third hire for a company, staying for 4 years and really seeing the grind and the challenges of starting from nothing and building something. From there, I went to a management plane startup, which obviously with the number one didn't last very long. And then finally, I've gone over to another compute virtualization product company, which is Nutanix, where I work on virtualization-based compute and also Kubernetes and container-based compute. So you can see how I've really picked up a trend starting about 12 years ago. So as I've been doing this for several years, I started thinking, maybe I should write about this. And although I've been consuming lots of literature over the many years, reading lots of interesting articles, I found that a lot of articles didn't say enough, or as I developed, I thought I could say more. So I started seeing some common problem statements. One, how do I get into product management? And I think that's why a lot of people are here. In the networking session, I just had that conversation with two people that sounded very smart, and they're tackling this exact same question. So I wrote about that in my blog, and it got a lot of hits. And I thought to myself, I'll keep going. So as I've been mentoring and helping people with that, I also got the question, okay, where do I start? I got that first role. Where do I start? What's next? And what I thought I would share was, these are things that are not taught in classes based on my personal experience. And I put an asterisk there because maybe they just weren't taught in classes when I was in school. I finished my MBA in 2003, which was a long time ago. And maybe things have gotten better. I've certainly noticed that there are resources, whether it's from product school or from different universities, that people are now more officially teaching product management, which I think is fantastic. So what I thought it would include were some of the hard-learned truths without any tricks or frameworks. And let's go. So what I would say is, first and foremost, if you're trying to get into PM and it's hard, or you feel like you just got in and it seems like a really deep well, don't feel bad. In my opinion, I think that product management is a journeyman career. And what I mean by that is, you start off as an apprentice, you go to work somewhere, you learn as you go, eventually you become a journeyman, and one day you may become an expert. And that's sort of the pathway of the old guild system if you were going to be a tailor or a woodworker or something like that, maybe a stonemason. You learn by doing. And by the way, that includes a lot of mistakes, and I've made a lot of those mistakes. So that's really what that's what I'm basing this off of today. So don't feel bad. I've done all of these mistakes. So hopefully that's what I can share with you. So I selected 12 mistakes, or at least 12 areas that you could learn. You can see here I'm basing this on the idea of the Marvel franchise of identifying with the wrong role. So Tony Stark, great guy, everyone loves him. I see him as the salesperson. Brash, confident, eager to make the sale. I see Nick Fury as the CEO. Smart, looking at the whole picture, telling the team to go to war, go do something else. Very much a mastermind. I see Shuri as the CTO. Very smart, very adept, very future-facing all technologies, knows how everything works, knows how to build everything. But I think actually that none of these are the product manager. I think Phil Coulson, if you're an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, is the product manager. And I think so because it's not what you might call the sexiest role. He's not the most visible external person like the salesperson. He's not the CEO. And I like to say that specifically because lots of older literature says the product manager should be the CEO. You're most definitely not the CEO. But I do think it's really valuable to think like the CEO. And thinking like the CEO says, I'm thinking of how the different business units work together, how the different products come together. I'm thinking about the business model. How do we go to market? How do I support sales? That's thinking like the CEO in my mind. But you don't have the ability to go raise funds. You don't have the ability to fire people unless potentially they directly work for you. So it's not the same role. So first of all, I love product management. I've been doing it a long time. It energizes me. Sometimes it tires me out. Sometimes I tear my hair out. But day in and day out, I like doing the job. Because I love building stuff. And that's what I think the Phil Coulson product manager role kind of does. So if you think you want to be the CEO, then by all means go after that. If you want to sell, by all means go after that. There are definitely elements of all of these roles that you can personify. Just make sure you're after the right role so that you enjoy the work that you're doing. The next one is working on the wrong product. And I want to caveat this one because if you're working on a product at all and you're making decisions about how that product lives, grows, and makes its next evolution, you are a product manager. Now, what I mean about working on the wrong product is products that don't have impact can lead to frustration for you professionally, or lead to frustration because you're not getting the investment either from focus or dollars that you want. And this could be a really terrible place to be. So my recommendation is follow the money. And what I mean by follow the money is products that get sold and are important to the company and make money for the company they work for, get invested in. If you have a 1, 10, or $100 million run rate, you will get the resources to keep that up and keep building. Or let's say your product doesn't directly make money, but it's highly strategic to the company. So maybe it's not a KPI, which is dollars driven, but instead adoption driven. And I actually have a product like that right now that's very adoption driven, and I can trace back the dollars, but doesn't directly have dollars itself. High strategic value means very important to the company. So you also get invested in. And the third one I put here is, or use it as a stepping stone. So when I said first, if you're working on a product, if you think it falls into this area of, I don't know if I can do this for 3 years because I don't know that it's going to grow, well, then be a PM, do a great job, and use it as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. Because you are still a PM. And if it's not getting invested in, invest in yourself and decide what's next. The third one, and this one has a painful story in it, is you're a PM in name only. And this is a really terrible place to be. I've noticed this, and I lived this myself at a startup where I was the third hire, and that sounded great, and I was a product manager. What I realized, and you have to find this out for yourself as well, is make sure that you're actually a product manager and you're not just there to do some work. Now, there's no shame in doing some work, but at a small company where the founder is not yet a full-time CEO, you might just end up doing work for the founder, but you're not empowered to make decisions on the product. And I found myself in this position several years ago. And what I'll say at the outset was, that was uncomfortable, but I still learned a ton by working at a startup, and a ton by taking something that didn't exist whatsoever, building it, shipping it, talking to customers. I did ultimately make some product decisions, but if you want to run the show and run the product, sometimes a brand new startup might not be the place to be. And that can be difficult. So there's a bit of an inflection point. If you're at a startup and that startup is growing, there'll be a point at which the founder CEO, she or he will have no time to work on the product. They're gonna run the company. They're gonna get the funding. They're gonna work on sales and partnerships, and they won't have time. They'll have to delegate the product. And I think that's a really good place to come in as a product manager. And where you fit in that range could be different than where I fit in that range. So what I would say is, if you're interviewing, find out what kind of product it is. Find out what kind of founders you have, what kind of product it is, how early is it, perhaps related to what series of funding that they're in, and is it the right time for you to come and run the product? Now, every company is going to be a little different. Maybe this is Series B, maybe it's Series C. Also think about what kind of company do you need to be in that's going to make you successful. But if you do find yourself in this position, decide if it's right for you. It can be a challenge. Number 9, and I see this one all the time, I could tell a lot of stories about it, is avoiding customer contact. Personally, I think as a product manager, you have to love your customers. And not every customer is lovable. Sometimes they're sticky, sometimes they argue, sometimes they'll tell you that your product is terrible. And if you love the role and you love your customers, you actually love to hear that your product is terrible, because that is an honest piece of feedback. If you talk to a customer and they just say, "Oh, it's great, I love you, call me again next quarter," you haven't actually learned anything. You validated that they like your product, but you can't avoid talking to customers. And I sometimes see this dichotomy of product, depending on what company you're at, that some product managers are externally focused and some are internally focused. Personally, I don't like the distinction. I like to make sure all product managers talk to customers somewhere between a lot and a little, depending on what the particular role is, but you have to talk to customers. And those customers will definitely not come find you most of the time, unless they have a problem, in which case they do want to talk to you. And you may have to go find them. And personally, I think there's a lot of ways to do this, from win alerts to loss alerts to working with sales engineers and salespeople, depending if you're a technology company or some other kind of company. Looking into your Salesforce database, talking to your customer advisory boards, talking to your executives. Customers are everywhere if you just go look for them. And I do understand that if you're brand new in the career, it could be a little bit unnerving to pitch a customer who doesn't even turn on their face on Zoom, for example, or pitch a customer that's texting while you're trying to talk. It's uncomfortable, but you do get the very best kind of feedback from those kind of customers. So love your customers, find ways to talk to them, because in aggregate, you're going to get some really good insights. And at minimum, you'll find out if they love or hate your product. And if they hate your product, I really want to hear that, because that's how your product's going to grow, and that's how you're going to grow. And I think at the same time, it's quite a good skill to work with tricky or difficult customers and figure out how to thread that needle and be good. So number 9 is you fight the wrong battles, or as this character said, never get involved in a land war in Asia. This one is fun, and it's actually a bit of just a life lesson, in my opinion, was focus on what's important to your product, because depending on how big your company is, who you're working for, customers or internal people, there's always someone who may very well have a challenge that they want you to fight this battle for them. And some battles are not worth fighting. You might just find out you spend a lot of energy and you haven't gotten anything. So I would say ignore the miniature storms unless they directly impact your product. If it is indeed your product, then go fix it or go figure it out. If it's not, it might not be the best place for you to spend your effort. So product and customer focus can really keep you out of other people's troubles. And ways that sometimes I think about this will be, let's say an engineer comes to you and says, I can do this in C++ or I can do it in Java. You need to choose. Well, that's actually not your choice. Personally, I don't even care which one they use. What I care about is that they do it well, product quality is high, bugs are as low as possible, it's shippable, it's supportable. I don't really care what language they use. And you also don't want to get stuck making a choice that you will have to be responsible for if that wasn't your correct choice to make. Number 7 is you don't know the gatekeepers. Getting things done, especially at a large organization with layers, with people who report to people, can sometimes be challenging. It is very helpful to get to know the gatekeepers. So get to know the org chart, get to know who enables people that you need help from. So for example, I needed a purchase order really quickly because I forgot to get one done for a contractor that's working for me. I was able to get it done in a day, but only because I knew my CTO's executive admin. We have a cordial working relationship. I asked her about her daughter, and it's not exploitative. It's getting to know the people around you, so that when you need help, you can get it done more quickly. And if they need help from you, offer help as well. So forge those relationships because they can really help you. For example, getting on an executive's calendar. You need something done. Sometimes executives don't really manage their own calendar, and their admin manages it for them. It's useful to know who their admin is. Recognize them. Be useful to them. The same holds true for reception staff. Get to know them. Number 6, your product lands in the crosshairs, and sometimes your beautiful puppies will get killed. And this one's tough, and I've lived this one myself. One day when I was working at a big company, my manager came up to me and said, "This product that you worked on for a year is now owned by somebody else in the other building." And at the time, I was probably too inexperienced to realize I should have fought harder to keep it when it was my project. I initiated it, I built it, I had gone along, and it got killed above me. Now, that's uncomfortable. I think there are techniques to help you avoid that, but you also have to understand that you can't control everything that happens. Great ideas get killed all the time. In fact, it's actually good to kill some ideas. You need to put all your effort behind the right set of ideas with the right products, so you can get the best thing built. And that includes letting other people very early in the process give you feedback, including negative feedback, and challenge you on what the best thing to build is. But sometimes things happen, and it's out of your control, and that's kind of corporate life in some way. Personally, I think you can get around this by staying plugged in and putting out as much information as possible. I think, at least when I was young, I had this idea that if you worked really hard on something, you could present a perfectly formed, completed product. At the end, everyone would clap you on the back and say, "What a great job." I actually think that's not the best way to do it, but to let people know in every step, show them the halfway finished product requirements document, or user story if you're using Agile. Let people give feedback during the process at points where you might not even be proud to show it. so that you get that feedback early and people know what you're doing as you're doing it, and you keep them informed and they buy in as you go along. It's actually much better because as things move, you'll know what's going on, and then you keep your management and executives involved as well. So bring people on the journey with you. It can actually help. And although it's quite unfortunate, getting a product killed, even though you worked really hard on it, can give you a battle scar. And over time, it just makes you better. So it's not a comfortable experience, but it can make you better. Number 5, and this one I've seen at many places over the years, is you are not the customer. And usually the way this lines up is maybe you used to be the customer and that's why you got hired, and you came from this domain expertise that was really full and very rich, but you are able to apply that domain expertise and make good decisions. But if you don't talk to the customer, at some point your domain expertise will run out, even if you are very good, because you're not getting the aggregate information from everyone around you and those customers. So you're not the customer. If you rely only on your own personal experience expertise, it's a market survey of one. And usually market survey of one are not very informative. And this sort of leads to bad data in, bad product out eventually. Now, what's tricky about this one is your idea might actually be good. You might actually have some good ideas and you might actually make some progress. But I think ultimately this runs out. So my recommendation here is use the voice of the customer. Make sure you're talking to those customers and talk to a lot of them. Because as I said earlier, some of them will beat you up. Some will tell you you're great. Some will be in between. Some will ignore you. So it takes effort to go out and get enough people with enough feedback to give you some solid signal. Once you have that, then by all means, layer on your intuition. Because sometimes you won't always have perfect data. And I would actually hazard to say you almost never have perfect data. You will need to make some choices. Sometimes those choices will be wrong, and it's okay to use your gut and your intuition, but I say use it second. Get as much primary data as you can and leverage other people, and then add in your intuition. Number 4, you won't do strategy on day one. This one is interesting because I see this a lot with MBA students looking for their first job. And it might not exclusively apply to them, but often you interview people, they're young, they're hungry, and they say, I want to work on strategy. And what I usually say is, you're not really old enough or you're not experienced enough to do strategy. And I think this is a bit more of a younger career professional challenge. I think strategic thinking is amazing. And I think you should do that. But as a brand new employee, you're not going to come in and run the strategy for the entire product line, unless maybe you go to a place like McKinsey that focuses on strategy, but they're not actually building products themselves. So what I would say is think strategically. Just like I said, think about being the CEO of the product, even though that's not exactly who you are. And just like a Matryoshka doll here, apply strategy where you are and maybe think one ring out. And then as you get older, you learn more, you get more of those battle scars, you start to think more rings. And those rings could be defined as more facets to the product. For example, on a big enterprise product, I may have the feature, then I may also have role-based access control, and then I might also have user interface, then I might have partnerships, and I might have API compatibility. There could be quite a number of things, and we haven't even talked about the rings of what do my customers do? What does the sales department do? How does sales sell? They don't necessarily sell based on your technical features. They sell with respect of how to make a sale. It's different. How would your SEs sell? They get a little bit closer to the product. What does finance think? How are we going to recognize revenue? All these become rings on a complicated problem. And when you're fresh out of school, you're probably not ready for that. But I think you should apply strategy where you are. Think a little bit outside of your circle and then keep growing. Someone joining a role after 20 years experience is probably going to be pretty good at this. Of course, it depends on who they are and what they've done, but it takes time. So don't be in a rush. Definitely apply yourself. This one I like. Your customers aren't PMs. Your customers are your customers. They use your product quite often, with exceptions, of course. They're not really thinking about what their 3-year plan is. And there are definitely exceptions to this, but the person working on a 3-year plan might be the CIO, might be the CTO. In my case of enterprise software, my key principal user is the admin or the sysadmin. They're not really thinking necessarily about what's happening in 3 years, so they can't tell you what the future is. What they might be able to tell you is, well, my principal competitor does this and I want that feature. In which case you need to find out from them, does that really solve the problem that they're looking for, or is it just a comparison? So the point here is, it's not your customer's job to define what the future of the product is. You absolutely want their feedback. You want to talk to lots of them so you can get that best feedback. But they alone are not going to tell you what the future is. That's really your job to go figure out. What customers can do is they can validate your ideas. And if you talk to enough of them in aggregate, you can start to get the idea of what are the aggregate insights? What are the trends that you're seeing? How can I start taking that, adding my intuition, taking my primary research, talking to sales, talking to SEs, see what your executives think, and start building a story and forming an opinion. But it's pretty unlikely that your customer is going to tell you, make this because that's where I'm going to be in 3 years. Because 3 years is a long time, especially in a tech company or a tech consumer. Quite a lot could change, including them even being at the company. The next one, startups. I add this in because I did do startups, and I know at least in Silicon Valley, where the SVPMA is, we have a lot of them. So I think startups are great. You can run fast, but be careful not to hit a wall, because just like the analogy of building the plane while flying through the sky, you can run fast, you might hit walls. There's no seatbelts. So similar to what I was saying before, startups can be great if you're a startup person. If you're finding the right role at the right company and you're given the right ability to drive, own, and control the product, of course, working with everyone else at the company, then that might be a great fit for you. So join the right team at the right time, depending on who you are. So if you are a brand new PM and you're looking for training, you're looking for opportunity, I would really caution against the startup, unless you just love startup life, or you think you do, because startups often don't have space or people to train you. And if you're the first PM, there's probably nobody to train you. And I think that's a challenging place to be. So if you want training, I usually recommend go to an established company with a PM team, with people who have done the job, maybe in multiple companies. They can show you best practices, they can show you templates, they can show you why things come together. They can help you learn how to pitch the product and what different things matter and how to overcome objections. I think these are all really useful. Now, if you're a PM that already knows how to do all that and you see a great startup opportunity and you're already trained, well, maybe that's a great opportunity for you to go after it, and really just go running. If you're able to run and you don't need a ton of direction, I think it could be a great opportunity. Of course, you still have to pick the right startup. Plenty of them don't make it. And number one, actually, it was funny. This point came up in the networking a few minutes before the meeting. Was you have to love the grind, and I say this because as a PM, you set the pace. Your executives might also set the pace, but in my experience, other teams don't most of the time. So if you have a vision, you know where that product needs to go. You pick the hill, you say, we're going to climb that hill. You sell the vision to the team. You may have to do that many times over. And then you start marching uphill to get the thing built. It is not infrequent that sometimes you march a few feet up the hill and you turn around and people are watching you and not marching up the hill with you. So are you willing to pull them up with you because you believe in this, motivate people to get the right work done, motivate them on the goal, remotivate them, make sure they understand, and keep pulling. And then when you do that, repeat that process and keep loving it. And I put this one in here because PM can be a grind. Personally, I love it. I love the effort, but as I mentioned earlier, sometimes I do tear my hair out. So if you love the work, if you love building and you love selling to other people and letting them know that you are super motivated about this, you're going to share that motivation with them. I think that's really powerful. And if you enjoy that, you're going to love this. If you don't enjoy pulling people or motivating people, it could be quite challenging for you. So I do caution people for that. So those are my 15 takeaways. I have 3 bonus ones that I can share, which I think may be fun. And I pulled them out because they were a little bit different than the other 3, but it appears that we have plenty of time. So I'll throw those in as well. Just for fun, here's my profile on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, as well as my blog. I don't really use Twitter, so that's probably the best place to get me there. The first +1, I have 3 of these. With regards to career, you can do it the fast way, you can do it the slow way. And of course, everyone's story is different. Every company trajectory is different, but find a mentor and find a sponsor. They can be difficult to find, but be good at your job, find people to help you and show you the way. And this is why larger companies can sometimes be good and why picking your manager is so important. But sometimes you can't pick your manager. You're looking for the right role. Only so many opportunities open up, especially if you're looking for that first PM job and you haven't done PM before. So getting that first open door might not be the best product. Who knows? Maybe it's not even the best company, but it gives you an opportunity. See if you can find a mentor. See if you can find a sponsor to help open doors for you and show you the way. It can really speed up your ability to do more and grow faster. Bonus number 2, I put this in here for fun. Some men just want to watch the world burn. I wanted to replace men with people, but the quote was men. And this is from The Dark Knight. Some people are interested in your success. And this is just a fact of life. You can work really hard, and some teams will be too focused on what they're doing to worry about they're doing versus worrying what you're doing. So just be aware. Do a great job, work on what you're doing, and just keep forging ahead. You can have a long PM career. Some places work out better than others. But remember as well, even people that maybe you're not getting along with, they're probably working hard on their stuff too. Everyone's a hero in their own story, and their priorities might not be your priorities. So just FYI. And then finally, invest in relationships. Everyone here is networking. Everyone here is learning more. So I think you men and women probably have this as a skill in your back pocket, but people work with people they like and respect. And by getting to know the people you work with, understanding what their life situations are, especially in these times of COVID, I know intimately now what the people on my team, what they're doing with their children, how that's working out for them. How one of my employees is spending a lot of time finding online education courses for her child. How another is taking care of his parents. There's a lot going on. Forge those relationships, get to know the people around you, because you're going to need them and they're going to need you. So when you create the relationships first, and then you move on to let's get the work done and maintain those, I think is better for you, and you'll be a better product manager for it, and you'll get better product outcomes for it. So with that, thank you. Most happy to take questions.
Luke, we never launched any of the polls. I was wondering if you wanted me to run maybe the second poll.
Sure, let's do it. We had thought about doing 2 polls. Let's do it.
All right, so I'm going to run the first poll here just for 60 seconds here. I'm going to launch this one off here. And the first question is, how many years have you been in product management? So we'll just get a rough idea of how long you've been at the grind. We've got more than half the people in here. I'll give it just up a little bit longer here. Still votes coming in. Get your vote in before it's too late. All right, we're at 70%, 78, 79, 80%. All right, if you haven't found the button, look for it next time. I'm going to close off and share the results here. We're pretty evenly spread out. We've got a 15 to 20% across everything, 9% in the 3 to 5 range, but fairly good distribution, I would think. Did that
Yeah.
run what you expected?
You know, I actually thought you would have more early careers. So this is really great. You've got some long-term people in product here. Excellent.
Some of us have stayed with this for some unexplainable reason. All right, so let me run the second poll here. And number 2. We'll launch this off here. And for this, the question is, how many of these challenges that Luke presented have you run into personally? And so I think, given our distribution, I think we'll run across a number that are on the higher end of things. But I think there was a lot of virtual head nodding as you were going through these different pain points of like, yep, I've fallen in that pothole, I've fallen in this pothole. Yes, this one's really familiar. So we'll see what comes in for folks. Just running up, give it another half a minute here. We've got about 70% of the people answering. Only one person has answered that they have not run across any of these, and I'm hoping, I want to know where they're working.
We can all learn from that person.
Yeah, we could definitely learn, like, what did you do to avoid it, or did you just happen to run across the most amazing organization ever to run a product for?
Well, so some organizations are amazing, and you know, I've heard about some of them. You know, Intuit is well known to have a really robust product organization. I've heard good things about Google. There's a lot of good companies out there.
Yeah,
and some are less renowned.
And some are in the grizzled territory. All right, I'm going to close off. We have almost 80% of people responding. I'm going to end the poll and share this. And the overwhelming majority answer has been scars over the years, with 3 to 5 of these issues having been encountered.
Good, very interesting. I was hoping it would be lower just for everyone else's sake, but you know, personally, I think that, you know, getting some of these scars over the years is how you get better. And that's why I preface the presentation saying I've made just about all of these mistakes. They do make you better over time.
Yeah.
Some would be nice to avoid.
It reminds me of a cartoon that I saw some time back, and somebody's interviewing for the job, and they looked at the person's resume and said, it seems like everything you've touched, you've completely sunk. You know, why on earth should I hire you? And he says, well, I've made all the mistakes. I make enough, you know, if people learn from other folks' mistakes, I make enough mistakes to train your entire team. Likewise, if you have people with a lot of scars, they can help you avoid a lot of the problems rolling forward. So with that, I think we can open up to general questions. Luke is here, and you're all very lucky to have a chance to interact with him. If folks wanted to type in a question, and we're more than willing to take things that way. If they are brave enough to unmute and ask their question in person, more than happy for people to unmute and throw any questions in. See,
I do have a question. This is Wendy. I am a experienced PM. Just wondering if Luke can share your thoughts on moving into management, or keep climbing up on the management ladder, you know, go all the way to, say, VP of product or head of a product, versus remaining as a strong IC role. Like, do you see that as two distinct career paths that are both viable for product managers?
Happy to answer that question. Thanks, Wendy. So first and foremost, I'm not a VP of product myself, but I have done this a long time. So I can take you all the way through director role. And I think the answer would be the same either way. And I would sort of preface my answer with, what do you like doing? Because I think a lot of people want to know, how do I get to be the chief product officer? And I'll say, what do you enjoy doing? Do you like the grind, or do you like building? Because it's not always a grind, but do you like building? Because if you go up to that group PM manager level, or maybe slightly below, you're going to spend a lot of time talking to customers, writing requirements, working with engineering, negotiating, getting things done, stressing about release schedules and dates and payloads. And that can be a lot of fun. I did that for years. But what I want to point out is, at some point above maybe a group PM or as manager of PM, and especially director of PM or above, it's a different job, and it's very product related. But once you're in that different job, you're going to work on strategy, you're going to work on the vision, you're going to work on training other people how to build product and get that done. So if you like working on human personnel issues and writing reviews for people's 360s and spending 20% of your time or more always recruiting, then by all means go into management, because it can be fun, it can be very rewarding. But just keep in mind, even as a PM leader with seniority, it's a different job. So I absolutely think it's a valid career path if you like working with people and a different set of problems. There's an expression I heard years ago that says, if you're having a hard time, if you're having a hard day, ask yourself, is this the problem I asked for? And if building, stressing about building products and that's what you like, that's the problem you want, great. If working with other people and working with their challenges and making them your product of building a great team excites you, maybe that's the problem you asked for. But if you don't like doing that, I wouldn't put yourself in that position.
We've got some, that was a great question. Thanks, Wendy, for chiming on that. We've got a couple of questions in the chat window. Mayank is asking, it would be great if you could chat a little bit about the differences and the transition process going from an individual contributor to being a manager of PMs. I think you were slightly on that just now, so maybe you could elaborate just a little on that.
I would say, in addition to what I just said, I would say the transition part gets very interesting, because when you first start managing at least just one person, you're still going to be very close to the product. If you're managing one person, maybe two people, you're still going to be working on requirements, getting things done. You'll do a little more coordination. But as you start adding more people, and of course it changes depending where you are, what you'll find is you're going to hit this stress zone, or at least this discomfort zone. And doing anything new is going to cause a little bit of discomfort, and that's how you ultimately grow. But the discomfort zone is, you're really good at making product. And that's why you started getting new opportunities to do more. And maybe you're just not that good yet at managing people, but the stress zone is when you're expected to do both for a while. And you have to learn how to back up and enable your team to do the things that you used to do. And if there's still not enough people, as a manager, now you have a new challenge to go and fight for another person, or argue for a head count, or barter and horse trade. So the time in between, I think, is an interesting challenge. You need to transition to a new role, and you need to enable your team to handle what you used to be very good at. And you can still train and lead them, but that's not entirely your job anymore. Now, even as a pretty senior person, I'll still look at product specs. I'll still review other people's PRDs. I'll make comments. I'll try and guide people. And occasionally, if there's a gap, I may write one myself. But that's not my key role anymore. So learning how to make yourself successful in the new role and make the people who work for you successful in their roles, I think that's the interesting transition time.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that question. Prasad was asking, what do you suggest strategies to grow when your product is not in the top tier of revenue, strategic or otherwise? And I found this myself, and a lot of my colleagues. We started with products. It was some add-on accessory cable for some system, or we're in charge of some add-on optional accessory, and not the superstar product. And how do you work your way up through that from a growth perspective?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You know, one of my very first products, the one where I was a project manager and then turned into a product manager, I was working on an internal reporting tool based on phone home data from a storage array that we clubbed together with RMA data of shipments, with cases data, with ERP system data, and printed a nice fancy report that we gave to customers and salespeople. And the challenge there was I was really proud of my work. I thought I made the best thing ever. But ultimately what you find out is, well, you know, if the tool didn't work one day, the salesperson was still going to go and sell. They didn't really need you. And if the customer didn't get that report one day, they would get the next one. So you end up in a place where you realize your product is not that critical, just like the accessory cable. Well, if yours didn't work, if you've got an Ethernet cable and yours didn't work, they'll go to a local store and they'll buy another one by somebody else, and they still got the same thing. And that's challenging. So all I would say is understand that when you start, you're not going to work on, you know, the next version of AWS and build it from scratch in your first job. You're going to work on a tiny single thing, maybe a single set of 3 API calls, who knows, something small. Just do the best darn job you can on that small thing and slowly accrete and add a little bit more so that you get better and let people know that you're adding value. You know, one of the things that could be useful to an existing product manager, which I also recommend to people trying to get into product, is go find a product team and tell them you want to help them. Because at least in my experience, every single product team I work on and the people around me, they all have too much to do. They could all take an extra hand to work on that little SaaS portal project or the little research project. And in fact, this is one of the ways that I test people's sincerity of wanting to come into PM when they're internal transfers. Especially if I'm not sure if they're serious. I say, you know, I've got a small project and they might be small, but they do add value to me. Do you want to go work on that? So even if you are a PM, just say, you know what, I can do more. I did a good job on this. These 3 API calls are working perfectly. Can I take the next set? Can I work on the next thing? And just keep adding more. And I would say, just keep doing a good job. And so that may look like it's always just doing more work. And that's kind of a product career.
Yeah, thanks for the answer and thanks for the question, Prasad. Jim, I noticed you have your hand up. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. This was a fun little trip down memory lane, a lot of these things, so that was good stuff. You had mentioned mentoring and getting a sponsor. Wondering if you'd like to expound a little bit on the differences between those two and some strategies for finding those. We have a few people that seem interested in that idea.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. This is a good question because it's easy to say, go get a mentor, and it's easy to say, go get a sponsor. It's actually really hard to go do that. Now, in some cases, you might get lucky and someone wants to take you under their wing and say, hey, 20-year-old Jim, you know, I see you're working hard or really interested in this. Let me help you. But that story doesn't happen a lot. So what I really like is I think Ben Horowitz is a great author of product related information. He's got a couple of great books I highly recommend. He wrote the foreword to, I think it was Only the Paranoid Survive by Andy Grove. And in the foreword, he actually describes that Andy was his mentor, only he had never met Andy at the time anyway. And if you can't get a formal mentor, go find someone you really respect, maybe someone as a public figure, and just go follow what they're doing. Read their books if they have them, read their blog if they have them, see what they seem to be doing right. And if you can, by the way, at the same time, reach out to someone and say, you know, I'm looking for help. You've done a great job. See if they'll do it. But mentorship is a relationship with responsibility. Not everyone is eager to do that. Now, sponsorship is a different kind of role. Sponsor is someone who is going to look at you and say, I see potential, and I'm going to hold a door open for this person. And it's a different role, and they might be separately cultivated. But if you're trying to get into the room where the people are making decisions, you can't just knock on the door. You need to show value. You need to be doing well what you're doing, showing results. And if someone believes in you and says, you know what, I want this person at the table, they may open the door to do that. And sometimes these doors only open from the inside, figuratively. So a sponsor can do that. And if you can find someone in your association group, like for example, my company has a women in business group that someone that works for me spends a lot of time and effort doing, that's a great way to generate sponsors, not just by running the group, by being part of the group. And we have a lot of association groups, or you can just directly work with someone who seems to be recognizing your work and letting them know how your work is going so that they get to know you and want to go to bat for you.
Thanks, Jim, for the question. Thanks, Luke, for the answer. I've got two questions which are almost mirror images of one another, and I think it kind of speaks to people wanting to transition into PM roles. So Teresa was asking, what are some of the skill gaps that engineers tend to have that they should fill in order to be better prepared for their first PM role? And on the flip side of that, had a question from John saying, what do you recommend for a PM who doesn't have an engineering background? So they're coming at it from the business side, and how do they bone up on the market and the technical side so that they can get that first PM role?
Yeah, very similar question. I've given thought to this, and I actually wrote a little bit about this topic as well. There's a very famous Venn diagram graphic that Martin Erickson did, I don't know, some 10 or 15 years ago. It's a little bit overused, but it generally says that PM is at the intersection of tech, business, and user experience, or UX. And almost everyone I know started in one of those circles only. So that's the engineering example. So if I went to school for computer science, engineering, EE, whatever that might be, obviously you're going to be good at that. So if you want to cross the boundary into the middle, usually that's done by adding one of those other circles. Now, almost nobody adds them all at once because it's not really a reasonable transition plan. But if you're in engineering, go find a way to be useful or learn about the business. There are ways to do that. The extreme ways to get an MBA, I actually don't recommend that, but I think there are good reasons to get one. I actually think you don't really need them as much as you used to. But if you're looking for a way to cross the boundary, get involved in a different role. So if you're an engineer, you could probably easily be a sales engineer. You might not make as much, who knows, maybe you would, but you start adding customer interface on a technical product, assuming because you're an engineer. Find a way to do that. Now, you could take a more extreme jump and say, let me go work for marketing. They'd probably hire you, especially technical marketing or similar role like that. There are roles for people to transition. The challenge is, if you're really good at engineering, you might be making 30% more than you'll make in the next job. Are you willing to make less just to transfer? Now, if you do it in the same company, most likely they won't reduce your income down. But if you change companies, you'll probably get reset to market rate. That can be difficult, but you can do it inside the same company. So whether you're starting from business and going to a technical role, or engineering and going to something else, you can add and transition. Sometimes more education is good for that. You don't need an MBA, but maybe Coursera, maybe any kind of online MOOC type of class, small certifications. Definitely ways to get your sort of fingers in the experience. Now to the other question, can you get into a technical product from a non-engineering point of view? You absolutely can. In fact, that's where my career started from. I actually studied marketing as an undergraduate a very long time ago. And when I found myself out in Silicon Valley 20 years ago, I had a couple of small doors open where I got to work on technical products. I liked it. They were not high profile jobs. In fact, they were tech support. But I learned a lot. I kept going. I went back to school. I kept going. And some of the step functions were quite hard. When I first went to VMware working on server virtualization, when I had not studied computer science, that was a pretty challenging couple of years to find where my feet were stable and just keep soaking in, keep reading. So the unexciting answer to that is you can definitely transition. It might take time. It might take investment. And it will definitely take investment of your time to read about your industry, read about the other role, come to SVPMA events and learn from other people in network. It might take a couple of years. It's not necessarily fast, but it can be done.
Excellent. I think that probably covered off. Jay Smith was asking about prerequisites for getting a PM job, and I think you sort of covered it with the expanding from the technical, the business, and the UX side, and adding on from what you don't have. I think the one interesting thing that I found that's common among PMs as they're starting off, whichever those three bubbles that they don't have mastered, they tend to think, well, I can't really be a full-fledged PM because I'm not a master of, this bubble or that bubble. Instead, realizing, well, the engineers know more engineering than I do, or the sales and the marketing guys know more about, the UX and the customer problems, or, and everybody will always know more than about you in at least one category. But you also know things that they don't. And I think that's a key thing to recognize, and at least give you the confidence to say, okay, here's what I can bring to the table. I just need to be able to connect it with the other bubbles in order to add some value to the team. See what else we have here. Oh, Ashwin, you've had your hand up for a little while. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Sure, thanks, Tom. And Luke, appreciate your insights today. My question is similar to what Wendy had asked earlier. I was wondering your thoughts on what kind of muscles does one have to exercise or work upon for somebody who's, say, at a director product role to prepare themselves for a VP product or a chief product officer in a Series B, Series C startup?
Well, thanks, Ashwin, for the question. I was about to tell you, since I haven't been a CPO, I'm not sure if I have exercised that proper muscle. But when you qualified it with at a startup, then there's a different interchange at work. To work at a startup, and you said as a chief product officer at a startup.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest challenge when you go to a startup, because I had done one for a long time, the biggest challenge is startups, in my experience, don't hire people to train them, especially in the early days. They hire people who can start running right away, in which case they're usually hiring people that have already done the vertical work that they need. So if you're going to be an online microseconds based measured payments platform, you're most certainly not going to hire someone who made the last version of Minty Fresh toothpaste. You're going to hire someone who's done that role before, because they know the world, they know the domain, they know the customers, they probably know the partners, in which case they can come in and be immediately effective and maybe just need to learn a little bit about what's this new product idea. Now, what I think is interesting is this concept of title inflation and title deflation. So I think depending on the startup and depending if you're friends or depending if it's like Series A and it's only 15 years old, you could be a junior PM and go to be the chief product officer, because they might give you whatever title you want because they're new and they need people to kind of feed the meat grinder, and work really hard and work the weekends and dedicate their lives. So you might get title inflation because they need you, and they are a company that hasn't established a brand or established a product. In fact, they might not even have even the most bare bones of an MVP. So they might take anyone. Now, it's not necessarily a great hiring strategy, but they might take someone who's not a CPO and say, we're going to put you in this role because we need someone, and I'm going to motivate you with a title that doesn't really cost me anything. I think a much harder question is, let's say I'm at a public company or a larger organization, and I want to go from a director to be a chief product officer at a similar kind of organization. That's not the question you asked me, but I think that's a harder one because now we're talking about product strategy, really knowing all the concentric circles of the of strategy and how the company works. At least in my experience, the higher you get, the more you need to know about how the company operates and how the business operates, and less about did they pick Java or C++ to code the product. I'll bet you a lot of chief product officers probably couldn't even operate the product of the company they work in because they're working at a different level. They're building teams, they're building product lines with people in them, they're thinking about acquisitions, they're in front of customers, they're selling the story. So at large, I would say the muscle to build is, how do I get to know the industry and the business I'm in? how do I get to be able to tell the story exceedingly well, that I can talk to analysts, that I can talk to other CEOs, that I can convince my CEO to do the right thing, and hopefully not get blinded by the CEO's vision to say this is better for the company. And that can be challenging. Hopefully that covers your answer.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. We've got one more kind of general question. I'm going to kind of summarize and combine a few in here. There was a little bit of commentary about finding sponsors, or some people were saying, well, if you can get a collection of mentors together, maybe you don't saturate one person with 100 questions. Any thoughts about getting feedback, being able to kind of build your own sort of customer panel of you as a PM, and be able to get the career advice and drive that on as a mentorship exercise?
Yeah, interesting question. I think if you can build up some close friends, friends that are not so close to you that they won't hurt your feelings, and will give you honest feedback. I think, especially at a larger company with lots of people, you can build a bit of a trusted advisor board for yourself. They could be people more senior to you, but it might actually help for people to be peers to you or one level up to you. And you can say, listen, you've been observing my work, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And lean on them for some honest feedback. Now, they might not want to do that every week, but periodically they could do that. You could also establish a similar guidance group with people in the industry, but at different companies. But that could be a little more challenging because they don't see your work. But they might nonetheless help you out in a mentorship capacity. I think maybe the challenge is to find a mentor, and where you both understand the relationship, that they're going to help you. You're going to come to them with challenges. You're going to listen to them with their suggestions and hopefully try and implement them. Because mentorship's a relationship where they're going to invest their time in you. Are you bringing valuable problems to them and listening to what they say?
Early on, I remember attending a number of happy hours way back in the day, and there were a lot of PMs that were griping about things that went wrong, or folks higher up in the chain of things that went wrong with PM functions, and it was rather instructive to hear where the friction was in the process, who was unhappy, and what things occurred as a result of that. So yeah, getting touch points from other people. What surprised me the most is getting feedback from people in completely different industries and having them have a different perspective. And I find that really, really useful to be able to get an outside view where they don't necessarily know your personal dynamics within the organization that you belong to. So they can give you a little bit of in a normal company, this is how things work. And that's an unusual expectation that they've made you think is the normal case of the way things are run. So getting that outside perspective can be really, really useful.
Yeah.
With that, if we don't have any further questions, I wanted to bring on Debashish. He is our director of programs at SVPMA, and he was just going to give a little bit of a preview of what's coming up next month. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to join at the start of the call. And then while he's talking, if anybody had a last minute question, if you want to type it in the chat window, after he's given a little bit of a promo of what's coming next, then we'll wrap up the call from there. Debashish? You're on mute, sorry.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the talk. We are always trying to get to you interesting talks that will be of use to you. And we have, for the next couple of months, we have some interesting topics that we are pursuing. Next month, we are going to have a talk regarding business transformations. Basically, how to blur the lines between business and technology, which in many companies is a challenge because there are walls between the business and technology aspects and people within a company. And so we're going to have a very interesting talk. We will, once we have the topic finalized, the actual exact title finalized, we will promote that, and we will announce that on our website and on our social media. So that's what we're doing in June. In July, we are hoping, and we are still in dialogue with the speaker, we're hoping that we'll be able to bring to you a framework for product launches. Product launches are very critical parts of product manager's job. And so this person that we are talking to has developed a framework for product launches that they will present to us. That's we have not finalized that talk yet, but we are, again, as soon as we do that, we will provide the information to you. So that's what we have for the next couple of months. In addition, I wanted to say, if you can think of a good topic that you would like to have a presentation on, or if you would know of any dynamic speakers that you would like to hear and you think will benefit all of us, please pass that information on to us at SVPMA.
Yeah, thanks, Devashish. So that's a little bit of a preview of what's in there in the future. And then looking back at the past, we do have the archives. Several of you who weren't able to, you joined the call late, or you may have missed something, or you had a colleague, you're like, somebody I know really should have attended this call and the meeting. We do make these available on the SVPMA YouTube channel, as well as the SVPMA, svpma.org website. So that, keep your eyes peeled for that. And that should enable you to share or rewind, or even look at prior meetings that we've held on particular topics. We've got it indexed according to all sorts of different topics. So if you're suffering from a particular issue that you're struggling with right now in product management, you can go back and find easily 3 or 4 good presentations on that topic, because everything's indexed and tagged. So with that, I would like to give a virtual round of applause. If you can go down and click the reactions button on the bottom, or wave and give a thumbs up if you're on camera. I'd like to thank Luke for this really insightful presentation. It was real life experience shared, and not just a textbook review of something. And so that's always great when we've got somebody with such great experience to share, and everybody gets a chance to get some wisdom directly from experience in the field. So thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Thanks. It was very, very informative talk, and right up there and helping keep our standards of great speakers.
Good. I really enjoyed it. So Tom, Devashish, the entire SVPMA team, and everyone for joining, taking your time this evening. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too.
Thanks, Luke. And we'll see everybody again next month. Keep an eye on your email and the svpma.org website for the rest of the details on next month's meeting. And we'll see you all in June. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.